Stressful, man, being the clerk.
Do you have like a shot or
I get it.
drugs or just like
Alright, there, now
Wait a minute.
connected.
is it like physical therapy? Like is it
Set up my screen.
Nope.
Oh, it's not? Oh, really? That's what I've had that.
So never had
Board
it.
docs.
Never had it.
This one.
Yes, that's my.
I did.
Oh, you know what, really quickly, as long as you're all here and we have a couple of minutes, I have these cards for a couple of donations that were made for thank you notes.
Oh.
I know that we had talked about wanting to do this, so sign, so I'll start one down by Chris and one with Matt, and you guys can rotate them around.
So she said she's been
There's two, right?
There are two, you
She was
have
actually the
one.
reason we ordered her a certain way. Because she would have been kicked out if you had, like, cause she's in like.
Tiffany, you can write. I wrote
Or
this.
something. But, yeah, she's
amazing.
been cornered, so that was fair.
Told you.
But anyhow, so. By nothing. Today I have.
This is your idea, this is you who wrote it up.
We're planning for.
Yeah, I already signed my name, so you can just need to sign your name.
The other school wants to do the parade, which apparently means black lights.
Yeah.
It's about to be held.
I know, that's why I had to put it in there.
There's a lot of people on.
I don't really want to buy things like that for a long time.
Exactly.
I mean, we could
That's
probably,
true.
yeah, we could probably rent them from like a party, we're a school, so like rent them from a party place, like do it for props for a play or something. But I thought, like, you know, if I have like 5 little ones, it's all like, you know, you set up a wall and it's a place where you do like a selfie station or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
totally, you
okay,
can totally do
okay.
that, yeah.
Not that I'm involved anymore, but.
Or you remove yourself.
So I'm not allowed to join because of certain hoarding tendencies. I got the Trunkdale thing, I got a beautiful rocking chair, I love it. I'm the only one who uses it, because I love a rocking chair. I'm like, it was free. But to me, that's the end of the story. It's a great thing, it's not broken, it costs everyone else.
Are you logged in?
Would it actually be? Yes. For example, I have snowshoes. I got them.
And there's the.
I bought an angle grinder and it's switched.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So I've heard to say no to that.
We are live, just so everybody knows.
I'm having a hard time pulling that agenda up here. Only at the final, I don't have the agenda.
It was, sorry.
It was, but it didn't.
I could have went around on that one.
Your meeting outside of the fact that.
I know, but it was funny.
This chair, we're not getting this chair. And then.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris, let me know when you're ready.
I can use it. Whenever you're ready. You tell me the time and I will be ready to roll.
Alright, give me 1 second.
Oops.
Where'd those cards go?
I got
One was that way, the other one's over
I
here.
ended up.
I get the same.
That's yours, yeah. Sorry. Crazy night getting over here. Looking for my rules here. Oh, shoot. You have a copy of those rules, do you? I think I left them on my desk. One second.
My pleasure.
Right there. Okay. All right, Chris, I'm ready. All right, let's call the order at 6:34.
Ready to go.
Okay, pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approve of giving public notice.
Public notice was provided from.
Great. We don't have anyone virtual. Welcome back, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay. Public comment sheets, if someone wants to grab that. I'm gonna go over some of the rules for public comment. So, when we get to public comment, which is what's next on the agenda, each speaker will be given 1 3-minute opportunity to address the board. Speakers must conduct themselves with respect towards others. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. No persons may address or question board members individually. Prohibited conduct includes conduct which is disruptive to the meeting, interferes with the ability of others to observe the meeting or speak to the board, or interferes with the ability of the board to conduct business. This includes conduct which is abusive, harassing, or threatening, and conduct which includes the use of vulgarities or profanities. If a speaker violates this rule, we may prohibit the speaker from further comment in the meeting. Speakers may not comment on confidential personnel disputes, share grievances involving individual school employees that do not implicate issues of public concern, or share individual student disciplinary matters as there are other channels available. Pursuant to Wisconsin's open meeting law, board members are prohibited from responding to public comments unless the topic was identified on the public posting of the board agenda. In an event, an individual's conduct causes disruption to the board meeting and the board can't continue its business, I will declare a recess and we will take a break. If conduct constitutes a threat or health or safety of other individuals at the meeting, law enforcement may be contacted to restore order and safety. So, all right.
2.
Great.
Val is first.
Okay, Val.
Great. So I just wanted to talk about Title IX. After last month's board meeting, I did an open records request to find out how much money it costs to subscribe to a NEOLA since we switched from laws. I was sent 2 invoices, which were approximately $2,700 apiece. And on the invoices, it said 6-month billing plan. One said 1 of 6, the other said 2 of 6. So if I multiply $2,700 by 6, that gives me like $16,000. So I'm not sure if that's a startup fee or if that's an annual fee, but it's a lot of money to spend if you're not gonna follow the legal advice that they give, in my opinion. Kettle Moraine is currently being sued over this very item, so it's very feasible that Hartland-Lakeside could expect the same. I also did a little research. In 2021, there was a Wisconsin Youth Risk Behavior survey done, and 1/3 of our trans youth reported feeling unsafe in schools. 18% of them reported skipping school due to feeling unsafe. So, and that was in 2021, with all the policies, anti-LGBT policies being enacted on school boards, I'm sure these numbers have gone up. So I think it's important that kids feel safe in school, regardless of how they identify. And I also know that the state report card takes into account attendance. So, if kids are missing school because they don't feel safe and it affects the report card, and everyone looks at the report cards to decide what schools the kids should go to. It's important. I rewatched the last board meeting. At that meeting, it was stated, board members stated that they were opposed to updating the Title IX policy. They were concerned over the, quote, potential litigation risk we face if we were to implement a policy that might later be deemed illegal by the courts. This makes no sense to me. Right now, the way the policy stands, it is illegal. You can get sued, and schools are getting sued on this matter. So if you are concerned more about what might happen as opposed to what is illegal right now, that logic doesn't make sense to me at all. Also, I'd like to say, it was also mentioned at the last meeting, Hartland-Lakeside was specifically mentioned in the Moms for Liberty lawsuit. I just would like to throw out there that if there are any board members or board members who have family members that are part of this lawsuit, these board members should have abstained at the last month's vote and should abstain at all future voting on this matter because it's a conflict of interest. Also want to talk about the strategic plan. I went to that meeting. I was part of the board the last time we did a strategic plan, and it involved all stakeholders from the very beginning of it. Only 30% of our community has kids in our schools, so I think it's important to involve the stakeholders from the onset so that when you go to referendum, they feel like schools also belong to them.
We're at 3.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Val. Ben?
Okay, mine won't be nearly so organized, but it'll probably be shorter. So hey, Ben Sobchak. So I want to talk about a couple of the Neola things, but my overarching thing was like transparency. Like I know we've made a lot of changes for transparency, and I wanted to give my opinion anyway about some of the changes for transparency. I continue to personally not be a fan at all of board docs. I found board docs clunky. I can't get it to work right on my phone. So just one resident's opinion, it's a hard way for me to stay updated on things. But I understand it's part of an overall switch. Similarly, like when I went to the school board page to try to check like, oh man, is this a 6:30 meeting or not? The only thing on the school board main landing page is that meetings are typically held on the third Monday of the month at 6:30, and then nothing. So if I dig through a bunch, I can find like the YouTube channel, a couple other things, and then eventually the Thursday is also scheduled. But for that, I had to dig around and go into public notices. And I don't know if the average parent or anyone would know to do that. So that felt like, we might have more people here, which would be great to hear everyone's opinion. Similarly, again, I know the board is working to be more transparent and to help people out. For example, there's an agenda item saying that you guys are going to go into executive session, which is always a little confusing, I find, for some people, for me sometimes. And it took 3 or 4 readings for me to understand that today's special session is pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Part C and Part F. But then in the meeting minutes, you guys copied the entire paragraph, so people might not understand like which of these are C or an F, or which does this have to do with conferring with legal counsel for the government body, which is actually Part G, but it's listed right there. So as I was skimming, G is the biggest, and I might think like, oh, is there legal trouble? But there's not, it's C and F. So just things like that to make it a little more obvious for, like Joe Public or Jane Public, I think that would be helpful. Similarly, when I was reading through the minutes, which I appreciate being provided, there was the child find notice. I'm like, oh man, is that like a missing kid? Like what do we do if there's a missing kid for attendance or whatever? No, it's the very important and I'm 100% behind identification of special education needs. It's the referral process for kids to get more help who need help. Obviously really important, I understand why that's an annual notice, but calling it the child find, like it's not even the initials because I'm like, oh, is that the initials for the policy? But it's not. So things like that seem overly confusing. Reading through all the Series 1000 Neola items, which is one of the main items to be covered today in the meeting. Again, I appreciate all the links. That's been a great improvement that you guys are giving us the Neola policies and listing the changes. But I was concerned with one of the major changes in these 1000 level board policies. Line 5 identifies that there will be a paragraph 2 strike through with oversight of the board. And generally I find the board keeps as much oversight as they can because you are the publicly elected people.
3 minutes.
And that's being changed. So I found that concerning and thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
No problem, thanks.
Okay, that concludes our public comments.
I don't think she's aware that she was supposed to sign in, so,
Oh, I didn't know.
but
Okay,
There's something on it.
okay. Okay, what's your name?
Erin Wells.
Okay. Okay,
Ready? Okay. So, I'm here, I'm just gonna read from a statement because it's easier for me to keep my thoughts together. So I'm here today to address a deeply concerning incident that occurred on the last day of school last year. My daughter was assaulted by a fellow student on her way home on the bus. She walked through my door with a red face, having been punched by another boy, by a boy who was a year older than her. I immediately contacted the school to report this assault, expecting a swift and appropriate response. That didn't happen. Unfortunately, the response from the school has been far from adequate. Instead of holding the child accountable for his actions, besides a small suspension for a month from the school bus at the start of this year, that was the only consequence that this student has had. I requested that an apology simply happen. I talked to the principal. The parents refused to apologize, saying that it somehow is her fault. It's deeply troubling. Every parent of a child on that bus deserves to know about the violent nature of this boy. A 1-month suspension is simply not acceptable for such a serious offense. When I approached the superintendent to discuss this matter, I was met with resistance. Rather than showing empathy, I was sternly told I would not dictate how the district is run. This response is unacceptable and fails to address the safety and well-being of our students. It's important to note that this is not the first time that the Hartland-Lakeside School District has come under scrutiny regarding bullying and the demand for accountability. The district has faced significant criticism from parents and the community for its handling of bullying incidents in the past. As a parent, the distress and emotional impact of seeing my 10-year-old daughter come home with a red and bruised face is indescribable. This incident has caused her significant trauma, being afraid when he will be returning to the bus, and her fears of getting on the bus is a place where she should feel safe. This isn't the first time I've addressed the issues of verbal abuse and bullying in the school. Over the last 2 years, I've sent several emails to teachers. There are several different incidents. I can provide you with those incidents. According to Wisconsin statutes, the responsibility of school administrators include ensuring the safety and security of all students. The Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction mandates that schools must provide a safe learning environment free from violence and bullying. Additionally, the Office of School Safety provides guidelines and resources to help schools maintain a secure environment. The Hartland-Lakeside School District's mission is to provide a diverse and dynamic educational program that meets the unique learning styles of all students. However, this mission cannot be fulfilled if students are subjected to violence and bullying without appropriate intervention and accountability.
Erin, your 3 minutes is expired.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna say one thing on this. This is on our agenda to speak about in closed session tonight, so we will be taking it up.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comments. Chris, PPC committee meeting report, please.
The 1000 series were read through by myself and Amy. We addressed some of the questions in the Excel document that was provided to you. And hopefully you saw the notes. Most of them were very small. They had to do with a small wording change or denoting who was responsible for a particular thing. We had agreement on everything. We had one question on the licensure requirements of a superintendent, and that was answered for us, so we are in agreement there. So our suggestion to the board was to approve these after your read.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm glad I almost forgot. We also had the 7,000 series, which were a lot of technology and other technology. What else was it? There was something else besides technology in there. We ended up not getting through them all. We ran out of time. We were in it for a couple hours and we ran out of time, so we didn't get through the second half. So those will be pushed off to next month. Sorry.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So was this read on the 1,000, this was like a more detailed read? This was like, because I know we pushed a lot of stuff through that we were like gonna go back to. So this is like an official kind of, you guys dug in?
We did.
Okay.
We did.
I will also just add to that, which we weren't able to say anything about as I was absent for that meeting. In light of the 7,000s, because they are diligently going through them. It took them 2 hours to go through the thousands and then
Just the
some of the
1,000.
just the 1,000s and some of the 7,000s.
Yeah.
So we had Chris Dillon went through the tech ones afterward. So Amy had those because she does everything digitally. Chris did not have them because he was traveling and we tried to give him them hard copies. So when we came back, we made those adjustments on the spreadsheet that you all have. And now Chris has the 7,000s as they are presented on the spreadsheet. So as he travels this time around, he will go through the 7,000s, of which Amy already has. The schedule was set for us to do the 2,000s and the 5,000s at the next PPC. I think in light of understanding that 2 big series are really hard to get through, we are still gonna put the 5,000s in front of you, but it'll be next week that you get those. So the 7,000s, Amy, you already have access to. Chris now has the printed copy. And as soon as we get those 5,000s through, which we're hoping will be next week, those will go live. And then Chris, when you get back, we will get you the hard copies.
Sounds great.
So anytime these come up going forward, it'll be, we've got everything in place. These are the second go through. Okay.
If I can clarify, it's not really the second, it's the first go through for the full board.
I get that. Yeah. I mean, you basically made a pass for getting stuff as general to be matching our existing policies, right?
Correct.
This is something that we might want to talk through when it comes to approving these policies, especially in bulk. So historically, we had always said 2 readings, and Amy and I, when we go through them in great detail. I mean, again, it took us 2 hours to get through 1,000s and just a few handful of the tech ones. And so we go into deep dive, and we're finding that we're most of the time in agreement. Keep in mind too that these Neola policies are mostly conversion from one system to another. So the administration does the heavy lift for us ahead of time in trying to make sure that the policies are crossed out or selected with options that most closely match our current our previous policies from WASB. But we read through everything. I mean, every little detail, and there are very few times where Amy and I have disagreed on things. Usually if we do, it's more in clarification and trying to get clarification on something. So my thought is, in moving forward, since we have so many to go through and we would love to get these active, getting them active faster will allow them to get on the website faster and accessible to everyone a whole lot easier. So my suggestion would be for the 2 read, for the 2 pass, if we do this serious deep dive in committee and the board has a chance to read them, and unless there's questions, I would like to suggest that we consider having that be the second read so that we can get these policies active. If there's any special policies in those during your read that you don't feel comfortable with, pick those out, send them back to committee so that we can dive into a deeper look into that specific policy or policies you might have. And that might give us public exposure to these a little bit faster and get us through. Otherwise, it's going to take months and months and months of these. So it's just a suggestion.
So are we comfortable with the 1,000 series staying in consent today or no?
I was going to pull it out of consent agenda because I don't think it's appropriate.
Okay.
So I think that's up for further discussion as the full board.
Okay, Chris, you good?
No, good.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we had our finance meeting a week or 2 back. It's a fairly quiet month in August just because kids are here and the teachers get paid before they leave for summer. So there's not a ton of spending or anything. So we basically used our time, Amy kind of gave Chris and I a little primer on how special education funding works, so that was helpful for us to understand. We reviewed a template that her and Amy and Greg and Tina, I suppose, are going through with a capital budget to kind of sketch out, expected life on furnaces and air conditioning units and that sort of thing, and what costs could be, and so we can kind of look out 5-10 years to see what costs are. That there was a plan in place, but it's a handful of years old, so they're updating that, so that was nice. And then like I said, I've said this before, I struggle a little bit what you guys want to hear in this little section here. So what I thought I'd start to highlight is more for community that, I heard a lot of talk around the Arrowhead referendum that, Arrowhead wouldn't need a referendum if they took care of their building. Well, they haven't been taking care of the building, but it's 70 years old. So it's like, sometimes you need to fix stuff, right? So we are taking care of the building. We did $8,000, we had an $8,000 bill for some tuck pointing, and we installed new LED lighting in the gym at North for $12,000. So those were two of the bigger ticket items. So we continue to maintain our building within our current budget as best we can.
Great.
Thanks, Matt.
Great, moving on to consent agenda. We have approval, we have employee personnel report, monthly voucher and purchasing card report, school board meeting minutes from August 19th. Donations, which I would like to just make 2 call outs on. Lexi McCall, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, was the donor. Her aunt used to be a reading coach, and her aunt turned 75 and wanted to donate $75. So we have $75 that's actually going to one of our coaches. And then we received $500 from the Oconomowoc Memorial Auxiliary. So just a couple shout outs there. All right, we've got the Neola policy, 1000 series, seclusion and restraint annual notice, and child fine notice.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to motion to approve of the items presented in the consent agenda excluding the Neola 1000 policies.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I would like to amend that to also pull out item G, the seclusion and restraint annual notice.
And you have to motion to amend.
So I'd like to make a motion then to amend Chris's motion and also pull out item G.
Just a moment. Motion, and then as I'm typing, go ahead and read it. You motion to amend.
Your motion to also exclude item G from the consent agenda approval.
Which one?
That is seclusion
Sorry,
and
my
restraint.
notes changed the
Yep.
format.
That's seclusion and restraint
Thank
annual
you.
notice.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor to amend the main motion to exclude the seclusion and restraint.
Can I second that one?
If you so choose.
I will second that one.
Okay, discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
So the motion's amended.
Yep, just a moment.
Okay.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the items presented in the consent agenda excluding the Neola 1000 policies and the seclusion and restraint.
I'll second that. Discussion? I have one thing to say. We've pulled these out, we can pull them out and have them their own agenda items tonight, or we can move them to a different agenda.
Oh, no, we can have them as their own agenda items tonight.
Okay.
I don't want to hold up business.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So consent agenda is approved minus F and G. So let's move on to F first.
So Chris, you're the one who made the motion to pull from consent?
that was your request, so I just went with what
Okay.
was discussed.
Okay,
I
yeah,
have
no,
no comment.
oh, okay, well, thank you then.
Yeah.
The reason why I pulled it is because it's our policy that we have approved at the board, that all policies have to be reviewed twice in front of the full board. And we are consistently ignoring our own policy and approving things at a first reading. And I think when we have an urgent need to do so, that makes sense. I don't, as far as my understanding is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see an urgent need to approve the 1000 series tonight at the first review. To Chris's point, that they're gonna be active faster, that's not true because they're not up on board docs or on the internet until we have all of the policies approved several months from now. So we're not going to improve their accessibility by approving them on the first read. And they're going to be, we already have these policies, quote, active, just in their standing form as we already approved initially when we blanket approved them. So I don't think either of those points hold true. I think the other thing is we've got to be really careful and cautious about ignoring our own policies and starting to approve everything on a first read. And I think it's not part of the purpose for doing 2 reads. It's not only for the board, but it's also for the community and the other stakeholders to have the time to read through the policies and provide any comment or questions on it. So if historically we've always had a 2 review of a policy before it's approved, I think it's appropriate for stakeholders to assume we're gonna continue to have 2 reviews of a policy. So if I were a community member and I saw the 1000 series on tonight's agenda, I'd say, okay, so I can start to take a look at them, but per board policy, they're not gonna vote on them until October. So I have until October to look over the proposed policies and submit any comments or concerns I might have. And so if we consistently, my main concerns are I don't see the urgency. There's, because they're not gonna be active on any public site for anybody until we approve the whole things anyway. And I think that it creates a lack of transparency with stakeholders when we continue to push things through on the first review. So that's my concern with approving these tonight. I think we should stick to our policy of the 2 board review.
Anybody else?
I disagree, politely, of course, but I look at the first read with the committee as being the deep dive, that we dig into the details. And again, in this case, while you're right in the sense that approving it tonight doesn't make that policy group faster on the website, the longer it takes to approve them all, the longer it takes for all of them to be available to the public on the website. So yes, it does matter. It does affect the speed at which they're available, searchable, without having to have people call into the office every time they're looking for something. So it does ultimately end it. And given the fact that these policies are consistent with existing, that's our job, is to make sure that they are. And it's doing it in the Neola framework. We're doing the deep dive, doing the work. The full board still has an opportunity to read through them. And if the full board doesn't agree on anything that we suggest or that's presented, they can either pull the particular policy and send it back to PPC for additional work, or they can just say no. So to me, it still needs policy and reading twice, at least the way I interpret things. The board is still reviewing it twice. But if we have to do everything through the full board 2 times, I wonder how much is going to change if someone doesn't have a comment.
So, may I?
Go ahead, Chris, yeah.
I agree with both of you. But I think we have a policy that says, is there a compelling reason that exists? And if implementing these from our old policies to the new policies is a compelling reason, I think we have to agree as a board, that's the compelling reason to move forward. Otherwise, then yes, it would be, is this the regular policy review that we're doing? I don't know if we agree on that definition, but we do have a policy that says when a compelling reason exists, we can do an immediate review for the board to adopt. So if the board would agree that this is a compelling reason, I think then it makes sense. But I don't know, to your point, if it's not a compelling reason and we can't agree to that, then where are we at with the policy? So I guess my question is just, I feel, in my mind, this is a compelling reason that we're switching and we need to get these in place and viewable as possible and out front. But that's kind of where I sit and that's where I feel. And if the board agrees that this is a compelling reason, I would agree that an immediate revision could be done.
I guess I'm confused because I thought we kind of approved everything to make it live. So why aren't these available now? Why did we do all that before if we made them live? Like, so what is rushing through them now gonna do? Because aren't they? I don't know, what's the holdup? Like, why?
Yeah, let me help you with that, because I understand what your question is, right? So the whole premise of that was that our WASB policies, not every time, so we had some policies that we would take back to Boardman and Clark, and they'd be like, there's nothing legal about this, right? It's been sliced and diced so many different ways. And then when we start to look at the comparison, there are many policies that we just didn't have in place. And so we were in kind of a situation and we wanted to ensure that we weren't going to get ourselves in any deeper situations. So we said, yep, we're gonna approve all of these. And if we come to a policy that we needed to utilize, that would come to the front. That would be the forefront. So they're live and in their existing format, but as Amy said, remember we go through and we've got to make choices throughout them. So if we were in a situation where we were like, oh, we need this policy, we would grab that policy and we would have a meeting and we would say, okay, which way do you guys want to go with this? And then that would be what we would follow. Most of our policies are pretty standard, right? They're pretty standard policies. There's not a bunch of big changes. I will say this, I will offer this to you, regardless of the one or two. I'm sitting over here trying to figure out the numbers, right? And so if we can stay on track, it looks like we can go fully up in February. So we would do, if we do our first reading, September, October, November, December, our second readings, October, November, December, January. I think we can do that. I think that it is a ton of work to go through these the way that Chris and Amy are doing, and it's incredible work that's being done, because I think we ran into a time, right, where we were at a board meeting for 2.5 hours going through a series and going, what are we doing? Why, we need help with this. The ones that are coming are, they're big series. So to be committed to 2 every single time we meet is a lot of work on the 2 of you. So 2 hours, is that gonna be enough? What does that look like? How does that work, right? And that's your commitment and your time. I just want you to know that as I'm trying to figure out this 1-2 thing, yes, we approved them in a situation because we had a situation that we needed to do that, right? And we wanted to protect ourselves from ever having to have another situation occur where we didn't have a policy in place. So we approved those with the understanding that we were gonna go through these one at a time. And in full transparency, the reason why we had the issue with the link was because I was in there that day digging around, trying to figure out a way to get the policies live on our website so that they could be live as they were approved. I think that would make everybody feel better. You'll notice if you go out there, the bylaws are approved and they are posted. They aren't in their final format, they're in the Neola format of which the policy committee and this board approved through 2 readings, right? They're in there, they aren't in their final Neola format because Neola won't do the whole thing until it's all said and done. But there are some ways that we can work together to make this go live as soon as we do it, but understanding they're the corrections that the board has made. We can say we do need policies in place, particularly as it pertains to students and instruction, as well as safety. Safety is coming, buildings and grounds and safety, that's a big one that I really feel like we need to probably have policy in place for, especially on the cusp of our strategic planning. So all pieces that have to be considered. I'm not trying to sway anybody one way or the other. I want policies as quickly as possible, right? Like that's been my stuff, but that's about as much information I think as I can share with you in all honesty.
So, Chris and Amy, can you guys go back to our existing policy that talks about having 2 reads brought to the board and look through it and figure out where it might need to be adjusted? Obviously, you guys have 2 different views on it, but I think that policy needs to be brought to the table for us to discuss, not right now.
But we did when we approved the zero series. We approved that as a board when we approved the zero series and specifically kept in there the 2 board read policy.
Right, but the interpretation now has been that the 2 reads are the PPC read is counting as 1.
And that's never, we had that specific, so I'm happy to go over it again, but I remember that specific discussion when we approved the zero series bylaws, because that was my concern, that a review at PPC committee does not count as one of the 2 formal reviews because it's not the entire board. And so at that meeting, we discussed that it was supposed to be in intent, the full board reading it twice, and that's historically what the district has done as well. To Chris's point, and Tina's concern, I don't see it being any extra work for the PPC committee if we have a second full board read, because Chris and I aren't gonna do anything more with 1,000 series between now and October. All that does is it gives the rest of the board the opportunity to read through the policies if they're concerned. It gives stakeholders the opportunity to read through the policies and provide feedback if they're concerned. And so Chris and I aren't gonna do any more work on them over the next month.
Right.
And in terms of delaying when they become live and active on the internet, which is what we're worried about, it's gonna delay things by a month, right? Because we'll review the last series in January or whatever. They'll go at PPC in January, for example, they'll go to the full board in January, we'll have the second review in February, they're approved, and then pooh, everything's done. So in my mind, waiting the extra 4 weeks to have a full board review for every series set to make sure we're being fully transparent, allowing everybody to have the time to have input is worth the extra 4-week delay after all these months and having everything easily live on the internet, because they're already live in the administrative offices and being applied. So that's my final say.
So I have a question for the other 3 not on the committee. So if we come to this meeting, do you read through them all? If the answer is yes, are you gonna go back and read through them again and potentially find more things? If you plan on reading through them 2 times, okay, because like Amy said, I'm not going back and reading them again. If you plan on reading them twice, okay, then I would default to what Amy is saying if you think you would need 2 reads each time. But if you really don't plan on reading it twice, then why are we waiting?
Well, I'm not gonna read it twice, I'll be honest. I didn't get a chance to read this one, because we got them Tuesday, my kind of crazy week at work. So I didn't read, I've read the other ones we've wrote. I like the idea that the 2 readings.
Okay.
Just from a, you know how it is, I mean,
It's a lot
it's a lot to get
4 days.
through, that you get it on a Tuesday night and I'm coaching Wednesday night and I'm traveling to Chicago today and it's like, okay, so it's like, it's tough, right? So I would prefer the extra time. I do think it's helpful for the community if they wanna read it. I look to you guys to hash out most of the stuff, so I'm hopeful that you guys are doing what you're doing, and it sounds like you are spending a lot of time on them. So I mean, I trust that you guys are getting through and making good decisions. I don't think the extra 4 weeks is too big of a pain point for us, for me personally, and I would prefer a little bit extra time to look at them. So.
Chris, you got anything?
I'm just reading the bylaws that are there, and I agree on both ends, and we always can pull them off for compelling reasons if there's ones we want to get through sooner as well. If there's some that need to happen as we're going through this, because our policy does allow that. So if it's not a compelling reason exists for immediate revision, then the double, it's only by 4 weeks isn't a big deal. But we still have that option if we do deem that it is or becomes an immediate compelling reason.
Chris, can you define by that policy what a compelling reason is?
No.
Chris, can you? I mean, that's the only question, right?
Because that's what I said,
To Amy's point, right? We have done this multiple times, and I agree. I don't think we should just be throwing things out there to just be approved. And we've done it now a couple times, and it's probably, right, I get it, right? And I'm the one bringing it, going, we need to do this. But I guess that's my only question about the policy. Where I come from, we also did 2 readings. We then changed to policy committee doing it as the first reading because we had 3 board members on that policy and the rest of the board trusted them to do that work, and then another group did the finance and another, and it just came forward. So that's the only thing that I'm wondering about that policy. I'm not so worried about the 2 readings as much as I am, do we know what the word compelling means
Sure.
as a board?
I like what Matt said and your honesty with it, and given that.
More honesty, I emailed my wife's a former teacher, emailed it where they're pulling the 1000 series out. I haven't had a chance to read it. Like, what in there could be an issue? Like, can you look through them today? Because I got meetings all day in Chicago and I'm driving there. I mean, so it's like.
No, and I think for that reason alone, it makes sense then to stick with it, because especially if our policy committee is not able to meet early in the month, which sometimes we're not, it doesn't give you much time. And if you're gonna read through more than just our edits and notes, so I think that's where, again, you guys have to feel comfortable. If you're gonna do the deep dive read that we're doing, okay, that's fine. If you're gonna do more of a surface read and read our edits, it kind of just, all right, what did they say? That's where we'll spend our time and not on anything else. That's a different story. So if you're gonna plan on going through deep dives, then I think it does make sense, Matt, to do the 2.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and update the calendar so that you understand when the first readings are and we don't have a set PPC schedule, but at least you'll know what we're gonna review at which PPC meetings.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Sounds good.
Alright, so 1000 series is coming back. Okay, alright, let's move on to G, seclusion and restraint.
Yeah, thank you. I was just curious, looking at this and a little bit surprised, oops, sorry, I clicked on the child find notice instead, is looking at the numbers provided for seclusion and restraint. At North last academic year, there were 7 episodes, and that kind of surprised, I don't know the student population there, it looks like they were predominantly 2 students, but specifically the use of restraints. If I remember last year's report, we had episodes of seclusion, but no episodes of restraint. So I was wondering if that was a typo, and if there was any way to get clarification on that, and if so, what kind of restraint was used. Because especially if we look at Hartland North, that's our 4 to 8 or 9-year-olds, and so the use of any type of restraint was something that caught my attention.
As you know, I am not that, right? So I will
Right.
go back and find out that information and come back and share it with you.
Okay.
Alright, so both items will come back to the agenda then.
Well, I think we can
next month.
approve the notice, because it's just a notice, right?
Yeah.
But then it can be
Okay.
maybe for next
Find out
month
why.
or something like that, we can get further details on what happened at North.
I'm gonna say, because it sounds like we've gotta submit it in like a week, right?
Yep.
So we can't.
By October 1st.
Yeah. So we can approve the notice, and then we can just get further
Can't change it.
information later. Right.
That's my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
It is,
Point.
it is what it
Right.
is,
Right,
but
Yeah.
yeah, because
absolutely.
if I didn't pull it out of consent, then we couldn't have that conversation. So, it would be
So
hard
we
to
need
do.
to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve item G, seclusion and restraint annual notice.
I'll
Second that.
That was exactly at the same time, so,
Give Chris credit.
okay. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, did you say aye?
No, I didn't.
And then do we need to motion to save the Neola policy review to October's meeting? Decision, okay, then I make a motion to bring the Neola 1000 series back for board review and decision at the October meeting.
Can you say it again?
I motion to move the Neola 1000 series to the October schedule for board discussion and decision.
Question on point of order for that. Do you guys have to vote? Go ahead. Or is
Not if you
it-
do,
No.
point of
Okay.
orders trumps any action on.
I just wanna make sure that we're really clear on, so we will designate first reading, second reading within that. You had mentioned at the beginning of this whole conversation, does now Neola policy have its own standing? It's its own agenda item and it's no longer in the consent for the first read? And where would you like that placed? Under
As a
policy, or do you want its own agenda item?
I would suggest we have it be its own agenda item, just,
Just before the superintendent report?
yeah, I mean,
Just
it's
put that on.
my challenge, because I do truly read them. And the last couple series, when you guys had edits, I had questions, and it's never like, oh, I don't agree with this, or I've never had problems with it, it's just I don't understand something, and I don't like having the responsibility of approving something that I don't understand. So, and there's not an ability, because of the rules, that we can't talk about it. So it's like, this is kind of the forum to ask a question. Now, some of this stuff, I generally emailed Tina and she's responded to me, or maybe Tiffany too, I don't remember, but anyway. So I just think pulling it out in case there's something that warrants a discussion would be helpful.
So we'll do the first reading in its own standing place and then the second reading in consent?
I would do the second reading outside of consent, because here's the deal, I mean, I think as it sits for a month, if somebody from the community has a question, they will speak at that second meeting, and that gives us an opportunity, we can't address their questions, but if they raise something, I hadn't thought about that, we can discuss it.
We could always still pull it out of consent if there is any.
I think then what's the point of, I mean, the point of consent is to make us efficient, and so if we're constantly pulling stuff out, it should just not be in
And
there.
it's just like another motion.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't plan to use it to grill anybody on this thing every time, but I just like the opportunity to do it, given how restricted we are and what we can talk about amongst ourselves.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Okay, where are we at? The motion was made.
The motion is made, I don't believe there's a second, or you guys didn't. No, there's been no second.
Okay, I'll second it. Discussion?
What's the motion? I'm sorry.
It's to, you made the motion to approve the notice.
Is to move the Neola 1000 series to the October meeting for board
I'll
discussion.
just say I don't like the rules, but
Okay.
fine, it's fine.
All right, so you got my second on that.
Yes.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Yes,
Okay. Let me know when you're ready for us, Chris, to move on.
I'm good. I
Okay.
can clean up while Tina's talking.
Okay, Tina, superintendent report?
Yes, it's been a super exciting first 3 weeks. Our first Friday count is tomorrow, so get those kids in, because that's, kind of what everything's based on for us. So really fun, been out in all of the buildings and did some third grade recess the other day. It was a lot of fun to see all of them. I forget how little they are, it's been a little bit, right? So really a lot of fun doing that. The library, I just wanna highlight, had my one-on-one with Ms. Whalen today, and the students are super excited. Alyssa is just such a perfect match for that library. We knew it when we interviewed her, and she's really come in with gusto, with really positive reinforcement. She's got some volunteers in there, she's got the teachers involved. They're really starting to do a lot with Osmos, whatever that is in the Dream Labs. So they're doing a lot more with that and integrating that into the library a lot more. So you remember the sliding door kind of opens that space up if you haven't been over there. So very exciting. Lisa and Alyssa are getting along swimmingly and doing everything together. So it's really, really an incredible change that has taken place, and we're thrilled, absolutely thrilled for that. And I think that heart of the school piece is really, really what Heather was looking for, and I think she's achieved that. So kudos to her and her entire team over there.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, of course.
What's the reaction been from the kiddos?
Oh, they're just excited. They're thrilled. Whenever they're going in there, they're excited to be in there. I have only seen her do centers from the very beginning of the year, because obviously when you're little, you're reinforcing rules. What are the rules and how do you behave and what do you do and all of that. So she certainly is going to start really bringing things in a lot more as far as lessons are concerned. So it's very exciting to see. So yeah, just positive. On one note though, I have been working with, you may recall when we were talking about the busing and the crosswalks, and now we've got Waukesha PD, met with the village of Hartland, and the stops out here are not their jurisdiction, though they are happy to help us try to find crossing guards. So that's how we left it with the meeting with them, was they were gonna try to find some volunteers, much like what they do for voting roll, that roll, what is it? Polls, whatever, I'm looking at Val like polls. Like she knows what I'm gonna say.
I do have a Polish last name.
Yeah, so looking at that, so that's pretty exciting. I was able to do the first 2 weeks, before and after school out here at the stop, and there are vehicles that disregard. They just do, they disregard. So noticing some of the names on the sides of some pickup trucks and some landscaping and some construction, we went on a mission to get a 1 hour radius of all the businesses in Hartland that may cross through this path, particularly with those giant vehicles, and sent them an email requesting that they assist us in slowing people down. I stand there with the slow sign and slow down, I'll run it up and down the road, and they do. And so when they do, they see you and they stop the rest of the traffic and get everybody else, right? And I have parents that are doing that too. Today, that didn't happen. We had actually a parent out in the crosswalk, and luckily no children were there at the time. 2 vehicles just disregarded her. So we have to come up with a solution. That is definitely gonna be part of that conversation. Amy is meeting with Waukesha PD tomorrow to have a conversation about signage out there yet again. Delafield is actually the owners of that jurisdiction and that space, and they are understaffed from what I understand. And so they don't really have the ability or time or resources to put people there. But I will say that about several people, including the chairman or somebody from Delafield, actually reposted the safety post about please help us slow traffic down, and he put it out on his own site and said, great reminder, school's back in session. So we really are working to do what we can at this point in time. It is a little frustrating. The buck seems to get passed a bit. So we will just try to figure it out and get to where we need to, but thrilled that Village of Heartland was saying, hey, maybe we can partner in this a little bit to try to get some people there. And kudos to the families, the parents I've met some wonderful people along the way as we kind of try to get this figured out. So more to come on that as we move forward, but that's my superintendent's report.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry, I try to help take minutes from time to time, so Chris and I actually can review them. So financial report is the only thing I have under me. As Matt said, August is kind of a light month. I did want to highlight though, we did make some changes to the format of the report based on committee feedback. So when you look at what would be page 2 of the financial report, we did add a column for the current month activity, and then it goes into the year-to-date information. We did have to lose one column on the prior year, so that is a change, but just so that you know what you're looking at and what might look different when you're looking at this report. But looking at August specifically, funds received in August, which you won't see on this report, was grants receivable from the prior year, and as well as our Waukesha County final tax payment for the prior year, which was just over $2 million. So since that's prior year funds, it's not on report, but we do have that cash, obviously. Things that you do see on this report, under 200s, is the school fees, athletic fees, things of that nature. And then also interest on our savings account. Happy to report it's still over 5.5%, so that was just over $17,000 this month. For the expenses, the district does look good at this time and we're on budget. The 2 items that are, when you look at the percent, seem like they're over. I thought I'd address those. Capital objects, there is that circulation desk. It didn't come in until this new fiscal year. So it has to be in this fiscal year. That was about $14,500 for the North Library. There were 2 items that were incorrectly coded to capital, so I will be moving those. Well, actually, I have moved them. So that will actually come down a little bit for next month. And then the other big line item that appears over budget at this time, it's just the way we pay that, is our Chubb insurance, which is the district property insurance, which is just over $58,000. So it's one lump sum payment that comes early in the year, so it just kind of throws off how that looks. Fund 27 is special education. At this time, the only revenue that you see coming in is that interfund transfer. this month it was just over 16,000. Otherwise, the expenses and things seem to be in line for that program. Fund 46 is our capital improvement fund. Again, this is just interest on the money in that account, also earning 5.5%, so that was about 7,500 for August. Fund 50 is food service. The revenue coming in is deposits for, from families, for students. We had not had actually a claim submitted yet at that point, or claim payment, and then any expenses are related to the food service program at this time. And then Fund 80, or 81 in our district, is our daycare program. So that is revenue collected for childcare services and then just her costs for running the program. Are there any questions?
Anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, we're moving on to board president report. So the only thing that I have is I wanted to give a Title IX update. Just a reminder, this is not a discussion. I'm just giving an update. I sent it out to you guys already through email, obviously, but I wanted to give an update for the public so they understand where we're at. So we are at a wait and see approach. We have not said, no, we're not approving it, and we have not approved it because we are on the injunction list through Moms for Liberty. All 3 of our buildings are on that list. So the main thing I wanted to address today was the KM complaint that was filed through, it was filed with the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. And I wanted to let people know that I have followed up with legal just to see if that affected us in any way or affected what we had voted on, and it does not. The main thing to look at with the KM is that they only had four I think schools on the list, and they didn't approve the policy, which had the deadline of August 1st for schools that were not on the list. So that's where that issue is coming in. Like I said, the 3 buildings we have are on the list. Chrissy has said our wait and see approach is still fine. Obviously, they cannot make an absolute 100% guarantee that someone will not file a complaint. She feels very confident that her defense would be appropriate in terms of the fact that we are under an injunction, and we're in a place that is somewhat, I guess, safer because it also kind of protects us from litigation from the side that has put the injunctions on everybody. So she almost seemed more worried that if we had approved it, that we would be having, things brought against to us from the other side as well. So when all is said and done, it's important to point to that precedent still stands for us with the 7th Circuit decision with Whitaker and Kenosha, which still controls in Wisconsin, which you guys have all been made aware of. And the wait and see approach, which is where we're at, is still fine. So that's it. I will continue to give updates as things evolve or we get anything new sent from legal.
Just, we're allowed to comment on anything on the agenda.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the only comment I want to make is that in the email that you sent, you are correct in that our current policies do indeed include the protection of the class of gender identity. So my question back to the board, which people don't have to answer tonight because it's more of a theoretical question, is if our current policies already include the definition of gender identity as a protected class, then why are we not approving 2264? Because we're not changing the definition of the classes that we are protecting against discrimination, because our current policy already protects them. All we're doing is implementing a new policy that has better administrative rules and regulations to them that actually benefits the district. Because our current rules already protect gender identity, I remain confused as to why there's any concern about implementing an updated policy that doesn't change the protected status. And then, as we also mentioned and the lawyers agreed, The injunction from Moms for Liberty inhibits the actions that the Federal Department of Education can take, does not inhibit the actions that individual school boards can take, and legal clarified that. And then I also clarified with legal that there is no conflict of interest with board members who might be members of Moms for Liberty voting on these types of rulings. So that's my point.
Alright. Future board or committee actions or discussion items. We obviously have a workshop coming up for strategic planning. Tina and I actually and Amy met with someone today, and we are gonna actually have him come in and do a little presentation for us during that workshop on basically some prominent trends that we're seeing in education.
What's the date and time on that?
That's October 21st at 5 o'clock.
Basically doubling up that night.
Yeah, preceding the board meeting.
Yes.
So that's the workshop.
With a very heavy 21st, are we still looking, then pushing on, and we talked about the food was one of the things we talked about, the lunch programs.
Yeah, that's a little bit farther out. I know, I know Matt reached out to get into the lunchroom as did I, so we're doing some footwork.
Within.
Footwork. Did you go?
I got invited to a birthday party next July. And then she asked me her name, so I got something to look forward to.
So I am looking, we need some time to gather information, and I'm viewing it as more of one of those things that will fit into probably wellness for the strategic plan, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so PBC, you guys wanna schedule?
My month looks pretty good. What's yours look like? And we're meeting on the 21st.
I thought she said she was addressing, so to close.
The week of October 7th.
That's right, because when are we given the second set? When I get back from my trip?
Right, so Amy's gonna get them next week. You-
5,000 next week.
You
Okay.
will get those next week. You are out of the country, so I will get you those when you get back. Cause you leave tomorrow, or you leave whenever, tomorrow, next week, sometime, right? Sometime. Yeah, so whenever that happens, we'll get you taken care of. I'm hoping that we can meet, well, now it doesn't, can we meet the week of the 14th?
I could meet to get policies from you on the 27th, just to pick them up, if you think you'll have them by then.
Yep.
So why don't you let me know when you have them, and then I can schedule time to come in and pick them up.
Beautiful.
And are these are, the next set is a pretty heavy lift?
The next set
Fives.
will be the 5,000s. Yep, so 5,000s and 7,000s.
Okay, let's go.
And to give you that time, the week of the 14th,
14. You're not available yet? Monday or Tuesday through Thursday, right?
It's just, it would have to be evening because I have a full clinic day until typically 5:30. Wednesday afternoons are a potential, depending on what procedures I'm doing.
So if we did Wednesday, the 16th.
Let me take a quick look. I'm not supposed to plan Wednesday afternoons, but it frequently overflows.
My apologies to the rest of the board that we have to schedule these each time. It's difficult with our
Yeah.
calendars to put a constant one on.
Yeah, and
Because
I'm,
6 AM is not a very popular time for.
yeah, I'm not gonna be able to look at my clinic schedule because of the walk. So if we do Wednesday afternoon, the 16th, without being able to look at my schedule, probably the earliest I could do it would be like 4.
Is 5 easier for you to guarantee or not necessarily?
Later is better, but I also want to be respectful to the administrative team.
Okay.
So we're not prolonging their workday.
So let's do 4 PM on the 16th.
Okay, and that works better for you than Monday the 17th or Monday the 14th?
Not many throwing out the dates.
Just so that they have more time then to put
What's the other date you said?
Monday the 7th or Monday the 14th. Because that way it gives the admin more time to put our recommendations into the policy before they send them to the whole board.
I don't know if I can get through them all in a week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot of reading in a week.
So how about Monday the 14th?
We already have a meeting that day.
No, we don't.
No, not anymore.
That one's gone?
Yep, that's combined, that's close to combined with the 21st.
Okay, so that one's. I'd rather do the Wednesday the 16th.
Okay,
Let's do that.
at 4 o'clock?
And I'll let you know if there's, for some reason I have to push it back. But I hope not at that time.
Okay.
Okay, finance?
Actually, we were waiting for this to get scheduled, so I'm pretty open any Monday or Friday before the.
You wanted Fridays last time, so let's just roll it out.
It's what it's a lower day at work.
Is that the 25th then, closest to the board meeting?
No, the board meeting's the 21st.
Yeah.
So we should do, can you do like the 11th?
Yeah, that's fine.
The 11th work for you? Okay, let's do that.
What day is the
Budget
11th?
won't be final.
No, we wanna be there.
Oh, that's right. When's the budget be final?
I don't get information from the state until the 15th.
All right.
So
then
18th?
18th. That's fine.
But then the board will be getting it at the same time, just so you know.
Yeah, it's just how it is.
That's
That's what we do.
So when are we moving it to?
October 18th. We've been doing like 9 AM,
Yeah,
That's Friday?
Friday, October 18th, 9 AM. Yep.
Okay. 21st is our next board meeting and our workshop. Workshop starts at 5. Meeting follows at 6:30.
Should we give ourselves flexibility to have it follow when we're done? Or
We can do that.
Can we do that with
Can we
public
do
notice
that?
and
Yeah, I
giving
think
people time?
Yeah, the concern is then will our public be showing up out here and waiting around until 7 o'clock?
No, I don't mean that like if we finish early.
Oh.
Cause doesn't Arrowhead do that?
I was thinking more if we ran long.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at how they post it.
It's fine, just keep it. I don't.
I think
just
keep it, you'll have an hour and a half,
Okay.
yeah. I
Alright,
think-
so we'll just keep it.
We made the most of our last time.
Okay,
Is that the day you said someone's coming to talk to us?
yes,
Okay. And that person knows that that's the date and time.
yes.
Just making sure.
We did make sure of that. Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion then to go into closed session for consideration of the matters set forth on the agenda and per Wisconsin State Statute 19.5, 1C and F.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm gonna roll call. Chris? Adson?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Yes, Tiffany?
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
we take 5.
yes.
I do plan to be out there, if you can send a runner when you guys enter into open session again.
Sounds good.
Brian?
I know why you closed the window, but dang.
Hi there, we're gonna take just a quick